Sean, call us New Zealanders, file or send complaints to anyone of any organisation about the improper justice here. I would contact Erica Stanford, the Minister of Immigration, or the Minister of Justice, or the Prime Minister. You know what? We're not going to stop the mass Indian immigration because we want to do trade with them, and I think that's the good pro quo. Neil, we don't need to talk about Mohammedanism. You can ring in if you want to, Neil. Sean, another criminal, foreign criminal, and good friend of Ardern, Karl Schrobeck, seems to have escaped deportation also. Yeah, that's the MMA guy who brought in all sorts of drugs. Maybe he's been protected by the bureaucracy because he knows things that could embarrass her. Well, Alec, there's a guy who should have been gone out of the country, and if he hadn't been Clark Gayford's mate, he probably would have. Oh, God, John, we've got a minute. I suppose we could give him a minute if he wants to talk. You give him a minute. Let's see how he goes. Let's see if he can get through it this morning. John, good morning. Away you go.
Okay, so regarding Indian immigration, a Swedish bus driver earns 50 times an Indian, and the reason is simply borders. According to Ha-Joon Chang.
Hang on, are you saying if a Swedish person's driving a bus in Wellington, they get 50 more times than the Indian?
Sweden versus
in Sweden,
Indian.
John, what has bus drivers pay in Sweden got to do what we're talking about?
Well, same issue applies in New Zealand when you bring in a lot of people.
No, because New Zealand's not Sweden, John.
Yes, it does.
John, what's the point you're trying to make? Here. What's the point you're trying?
Well, I'm saying that it's the way the market works, and you weaken the borders, you let in a whole lot of people, and it drives down wages.
Ah, okay. Thanks. Yep, good contribution, John. Excellent. That's more than a 5 out of 10 this morning. Good on you. It's 8 o'clock. News time.
You're listening to RNZ National and the first in the 2017 series Smart Talk from the Auckland Museum. Today's panel discussion explores how immigration is changing New Zealand. Chaired by me, Noelle McCarthy, it features writer and broadcaster Ali Akram, researcher and Māori spokesperson for the Migrants and Refugee Rights Campaign, Dr. Ara Marata, filmmaker Roseanne Liang, and Massey University's Professor Paul Spoonley, who is heading a 6-year research program looking at the impacts of immigration and diversity.
But the thing that really annoys me at the moment is the way in which immigration is framed as a problem. It goes to Ali's point, you know, that it's a very, very simple and inaccurate response to what's happening in the world. We are globalising. We're part of a new era of globalisation, and this country has actually transitioned into that, particularly with its connections with the Pacific and Asia, in a way that has been quite impressive in many, many ways, but at the same time we really do need to reframe what it is that is happening, or provide an understanding, and that's what frustrates me at the moment.
But have you noticed?
Please, Paul.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, John. Let me start with my pessimistic side. The last 5 to 7 years has seen a distinct shift in the Overton window in radicalizing and normalizing radical ideas yet again, and the sheer volume of it, the fact that it is a global ecosystem, online system, which makes it difficult for country states like ourselves to govern and to manage. And also, it is, to me, a little puzzling that you in Canada, we in New Zealand, should be so influenced by QAnon or sovereign citizen or any other sets of politics that come out of the United States, which bear no relationship in many respects to our own political histories, even though those, you know, I'm not wanting to de-criticize those histories. I want to maintain a critical approach to them. So I do see a polarization, and what keeps me awake at night is how you overcome that degree of polarization, the unwillingness of communities to not treat others respectfully, to attack others, to be very vitriolic and hateful, and not to be guided by facts. Now, there's in terms of what we're doing, there's little that we can find yet to mount something which is effective in answer to that. And what's happened is, of course, that it's gone from being Indigenous or immigrant or Muslim or Jew to transphobic, misogynistic. And so my Prime Minister stood down because of the level of both domestic and international misogyny that she was facing.
Isn't it? Yeah. Well, as for thing 3, what do I mean by this? Yeah? Most people in rich countries are paid more than they should be. Well, we have been told by free market economists that people are paid what they are worth, so we should not complain about pay differentials and income inequality. Yeah? Because if someone's paid 95 million pounds a year, he must be worth it. Yeah? Otherwise, the market wouldn't tolerate. Yeah? Now, leave that end aside for the moment. This has also made us think that, well, you know, all those poor people in poor countries, they must be poor because they are not very productive. They are not worth very much. But as I do in the book, take the case of 2 bus drivers. I named them Ram, an Indian guy from Rajasthan, driving bus in New Delhi, and another guy is called Sven. He is a Swedish guy driving bus in Stockholm. Sven gets paid about 50 times what Ram does. But is it because Sven is a driver who drives 50 times better? Well, I'm not sure whether it is physically possible that someone drives 50 times better than someone else, unless you are comparing Lewis Hamilton or Michael Schumacher with me. But actually, when you think about it, if anything, Ram will be the better driver. And this picture will show you why. You know, every minute of his driving, he has to dodge the cow, dodge the rickshaw, dodge the children, dodge the bicycle, stack 3 meters high with the crates. You know, he has to be very good. You know? Whereas Sven, you know, he can, except for a few drunken drivers on Saturday night, he can basically do his job as far as he can drive straight because he drives in a city like this. Yeah? You know. So how come a guy who's actually a much better driver gets paid 1/50, 2% of another guy who is essentially doing the same job with less skill? Yeah? How is this possible? Well, this is possible only because of, let me put it bluntly, that protectionism, that is immigration control. And if you actually totally freed immigration, 80, maybe even 90% of the workforce in the rich countries can be and will be displaced. And I'm not just talking about bus drivers and cleaners. Huh? There are millions of bankers, engineers, and medical doctors waiting out there in China, Nigeria, and Brazil that can replace their counterparts in the United States, Japan, and Britain. Huh? Why not? Well, after all, I replaced a British economist. Yeah? Now, I'm not advocating a full liberalization of immigration. Yeah? Even as an immigrant, I know that that is not possible or desirable. But if they are to be consistent, free market economies should actually advocate it. Huh? But very few free market economies even see that. I mean, T.N. Srinivasan is probably the only exception. You know, Vince Cable once said something half like that, but I mean, other free market economies are not even aware that what they are saying about free trade and that free movement of people are contradictory. Once again, the fact that very few free market economies that actually do this proves my earlier point that markets are fundamentally political constructs. There's nothing in economics which says that British immigration per year should be 50,000 or 100,000. No, it's not determined by economics. Now, the flip side of this story is that poor countries are poor not because of the poor people, but because of the rich people of those countries. You know, when you meet rich people from poor countries, they'll tell you, if you would listen, how their countries are dragged down by all those useless people who are lazy, ignorant, and unenterprising. But actually, what they don't realize is that their countries are poor because of themselves, not because of their poor people, because most poor people in poor countries can hold their own against the rich country counterparts. Actually, many of them are more skilled, like our RAM. But the rich in poor countries cannot actually do that. So it is that if I put it that way, their failure to pull the rest of the country up, rather than their poor pulling the rest of the country down, that is making poor countries poor. Okay, so that now leaves the rich in the rich countries. Can they pat themselves on the back and tell us that, well, we truly deserve what we earn? Well, I don't think so. Because what these people don't often realize is that their high productivity critically depends on the fact that they were born into, or at least migrated to, societies with advanced technologies, well-organized firms, good institutions, and high-quality physical infrastructure. And most of these are things that have been collectively accumulated over time and not something those individuals have created themselves. Warren Buffett, the famous American financial investor, once put it beautifully in an interview. He said, look, I'm rich only because I happen to have been born in the United States. Drop me in the middle of Bangladesh. I'll be a struggling farmer. I'm not very good at farming. So I'll be rubbish. So all of this back and forth stuff about poor people in rich countries, poor people in poor countries, rich people in poor countries and rich people in rich countries show the fundamentally collective nature of individual productivity, without recognizing which we can build a truly fair system of compensation. So we should be able and willing to challenge these bankers when they say, well, market paid me $85 million, so you shut up. No, you should point to him that, look, I mean, the reason why you are getting this money is because we have a certain kind of economic system, certain kind of financial system with certain kind of regulation and deregulation, and that you haven't actually created all the wealth that you think you have created. I mean, just to give you an example, I mean, that in the United States, the profit rate of the financial firms doubled or almost trebled over the last 25 years. Is it because they really became that much more productive? No, it's because of deregulation. When Hank Paulson abolished leverage regulation on financial firms, he basically gave them free money. Because now they could have debt equity ratio about 5,000%. Whereas previously it was, I think, capped at something like 1,200 or something like that. Anyway, the details are not that important at this stage.
Healthy small boys get to be healthy big boys with protein. Bread and Better is a great way to get high-quality protein. Bread and Better, that's what healthy boys are made of.
John, please pass the better peanut butter.
Bread and Better, that's what healthy girls are made of, too.